everybody. Welcome to our third workshop. Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited to get started on this workshop. I think you all are going to enjoy our guest speaker this evening. I think gonna learn a lot. Our topic of our workshop this evening is on the topic of how do I prepare for a professional interview? So you're going into the interview, maybe you've gone to career fairs, maybe your mentors hooked you up and connected you with someone at their company. Maybe you've gotten some referrals somewhere else. Doesn't really matter. You are about to step into the interview. Maybe you've already had interviews before. This workshop is about how to think about interviews differently. We are bringing in guest speakers who are experts on this topic from around the world to give you insight and wisdom on how to make the most out of the professional interview. So this workshop is going to be about 45 minutes long with, and I encourage you to ask questions throughout the workshop. I'm going to ask you 3 questions during the workshop, which I'll have you answer. That's how you get credit for being here. You're now midway through the program so far. You should have already had your first conversation with your mentor. Hopefully you've already started setting up your second conversation with your mentor. If you have not, or you're struggling to get in touch with your mentor, please email support@ambition-in-motion.com. We need to take care of you so then you can get connected and make the most out of this program. So really, this program is all about how can you prepare for the first professional interview. Really, what you're selling your interviewer on is your ability, essentially your future potential opportunity. Essentially, you are selling them on your potential, because at the end of the day, people are not expecting you to come in and be the expert on XYZ topic. They are expecting you to be a willing learner and someone that's eager to gain knowledge and to be a better professional. If you can convey that, you will get the opportunity. But it will be competitive, especially in highly competitive industries. And I know that anybody that's in this program is more likely than not going into a career that's competitive. I mean, you would not have gotten a mentor had you not wanted to take your level, take your career, take your life to the next level. So with that said, I want to encourage you to keep your head up, keep applying, put yourself out there for more opportunities, and leverage the insight and knowledge that you're getting in these workshops to make yourself and to help you better prepare yourself for the interview. Now, before we get started into our main program, I want to ask you a quick question, and that question is, when it comes to the interview, how do you want people to feel about you? In other words, what feeling are you trying to convey about yourself when you are in an interview? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that, because I think if we are more intentional about how we want other people to feel about us in the interview, our likelihood of actually having that happen increases substantially. I mean, I've talked about in past workshops, strategy, story, state, which I will talk about in a moment, but this is a really big part of the story part. Like, what is the story that you're telling yourself? Now, I think sometimes we can interpret that as psyching ourselves up, getting ourselves confident, getting ourselves pumped for why we're going to be successful. And I think that's great. But I think if we could take it to another level, that being intentional about how we want other people to perceive us. So if we want them to perceive us as confident, or if we want them to perceive us as knowledgeable, or if we want them to perceive us as eager to learn and having potential, it could be a variety of things. But what I really want you to do is I really want you to identify feelings that you want other people to feel about you when you enter their world. Because you can be intentional about that. Your likelihood of having them actually feel that is much greater. But if you don't set the intention, you have no idea how they're going to feel about you. You've got really no control over it. But if you intentionally think to yourself, I want people to think of me as confident. Okay, what am I going to do that's going to convey convey confidence? Really, it's all about whatever that feeling you want to convey. Make sure that you are taking actions and being intentional about ensuring that other people view you that way, and that you come in trying to actively think about actions that you can take that will help other people perceive you in that light. So let's start under the next part of our workshop. Now, I've talked about this in the past before, and I've talked about this in previous workshops, but one of the big things that I always love to stress is the 3 keys to success in the program. There are 3 of them. That is your strategy, that is your story, that is your state. I bring it up every single time because it is that important. And the reason why it's important is because if we are not honing our strategy, honing our story, honing our state, we are not setting ourselves up for successful. If we let someone else drive our roadmap for us, we could end up in a location that we do not want to be. But if we are intentional about our story, if we're intentional about our strategy, if we're intentional about our state, we are much more likely to get to where we would like to go. It's kind of like the law of attraction. When we put it out there, and we put it out to more people, and we're more intentional about what we want to accomplish, and we're more intentional about how we are going to convey our bodies and ourselves to other people, the likelihood that it comes back to us is much greater. So I want to talk about state. State is the most important thing. Like physically, where are you at in your life, in your world? What is going on? I don't care how stressed you are. I don't care how mad you are. I don't care how dejected you are. I don't care of anything negative going on in your world. If you can get yourself into a state conducive for being successful, especially for the interview, you will be successful. I'm a big proponent of power poses. I'm a big proponent of screaming at the top of your lungs and dancing out. In fact, I'd like to do that with you right now. So for the next 30 seconds, what I like you to do is I like you to stand up. I like you to shimmy it out. I like you to shake it out. I like you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just scream at the top of your lungs at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Just let it out, let it loose, let it go, because you've got nothing to lose. I don't care if it's a popularity contest. I don't care if you're in a library. I don't care if you're in a house. What do you have to lose? This is not a coolness effort here. It's about making an impact and preparing yourself physically for being successful. What is the price of success? Getting yourself into a state conducive for being successful. Maybe looking a little weird to some of your colleagues, coworkers, or peers, but what is that cost to you in the long run? Nothing. They're going to say, you know, hey, what were you doing? Why were you dancing? Why were you screaming at the top of your lungs? You say, hey, I'm getting myself in a state conducive for being successful. Maybe they've never heard about it before. Maybe they've never learned. You can educate them on this. So don't worry about how other people are perceiving you when you are going to get yourself into a state that's going to level up your game, especially when it comes to the interview. Now, you may not want to do this in the office of a business that you are about to interview in, but you could certainly do it in the bathroom, in a bathroom stall. Get yourself into a 2-minute power pose. Stand up like Superman or Superwoman, or put your arms out like as if you're a star. There's a lot of things that you can do to get yourself into a state conducive for being successful, but you should be doing something, because if you're not, you are letting the way that other people perceive you essentially come up to chance. And you don't want to chance it, especially for the opportunity of a lifetime. And you have no idea which opportunity is the opportunity of a lifetime. It may not be this job. It could be the next one. If you make a positive impression in an interview and you may not land that job, that interviewer could have really loved how you interviewed, and that person may not be at that company for forever, or they might be, and they might come up with a new job. They might reach out to you personally to have you come and interview. It's all about the relationship. It's all about how they perceive you. It's all about that impression you leave. Your state is critical. Now, what is the story you tell yourself for why you are going to be successful? This is something we kind of did earlier when I asked you, how do you want other people to feel about you in the interview? This is a great exercise to prepare yourself for a professional interview. If you are intentional about how you want other people to feel about you, you are going to put yourself into a position to succeed, because then you're much more likely to manifest that outcome. Literally, law of attraction, putting it out there. I want other people to feel XYZ about me. Confident, smart, intelligent, well prepared. I don't care what it is. Maybe it's a weakness that you have, but you like to have them perceive it as a strength. Maybe it's a strength that you have that you'd really like to amplify even as a greater strength. Doesn't matter, but set an intention of something. Because if you don't set an intention of something, it could be wild in terms of what they actually perceive of you. Now, the last key is your strategy. What are the things that you're going to do to make the most out of this interview? Are you going to come prepared with questions? Are you going to come prepared with doing background research on the company? Are you going to make an intentional, focused effort on taking notes during the conversation, so then you're asking poignant, direct questions to the interviewer that are relevant about his or her life? Are you going to do the things that you need to do to be the most successful in an interview, or are you not? So the strategies you're going to learn from our guest speaker later on in this workshop, I think you're going to really enjoy what our guest speaker has to say. But before we jump into our guest speaker, I want to talk about one final thing, and that is getting yourself into a routine that can help you prepare for an interview. One of the things that I like to do, have an accountability partner. This could be it could be anybody. But what you want to do with your accountability is you want to share with your accountability partner 3 things that you learned this week and 1 thing that you've done to get closer to that internship or job. What this does, and you might think this sounds silly, you might think this sounds crazy, it could be another student in the program, it could be a friend of yours, does not matter. But what we've learned, what we've observed is that students who land jobs and internships through this program are substantially more likely to actually land that job and internship if they told other people about their experience. One of the questions we ask at the end of the question is, on average, how many other people did you tell about your experience in the program? What we ended up learning was that when a student told 20 or more people about their experience in Ambition in Motion, their likelihood of also landing their job and internship was substantially higher than students who didn't. There's a direct correlation to you telling more people about your experience and what you're learning in this program to actually landing the outcomes you like than not. So I want to challenge you to identify an accountability partner. Share with them 3 things that you've learned this week and 1 thing that you've done to help you get closer to landing that job or internship. Now, the other big thing that I want to bring up with you is our referral program. So we are now starting to open up the applications. And 1, I'd love for you to be in part of the program again. You can get a new mentor, you're going to get new content, you're going to learn from new speakers. But more importantly, I want you to encourage other students to get involved as well. We have a referral program for you, so then you are discounted to get in the program next semester. Essentially, anytime that anybody applies, we ask them, how'd you hear about us? If they write in your name, you get credit. If you don't mind being an ambassador for this program, I'm helping encourage other students to get involved and take advantage of this. I would greatly appreciate it because it would help us make a bigger impact on more people, which is really what our goal is. So let's jump into our workshop. I'm so excited for you to meet our guest speaker. I'm so excited to transition into this next part of the workshop. Remember to answer the 3 questions that we asked during the workshop. That's how you get credit for being here within 24 hours of the workshop going live. If you got any questions, any concerns, any issues with anything at all, please email support@envision-in-motion.com. We will answer those questions, concerns, and issues. Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited for you to meet our guest speaker. Welcome to our workshop this evening. I'm so excited to have you all here. I'm so excited to talk about how we can prepare for the interview and really what we can do to put ourselves in the best position to succeed in an interview, to really feel like we answered our interviewers' questions, but also we were able to get the questions that are on our minds out to the interview and ideally impress them. We've got an incredible guest with us here this evening. We've got Dolores Wuepper. Dolores is the Director of Talent Acquisition for Tis Treats Cookie Delivery. She has over 15 years of experience in recruiting in multiple industries. Dolores enjoys the challenge of developing strategic approaches to talent acquisition and management programs in order to attract and retain top-level talent. Dolores, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Garrett. I'm happy to be here.
So, Dolores, let's talk about preparing for the interview. I guess maybe I'd love to learn, before we even jump into that, I'd love if you could just share with me a little bit more about, and really our audience, share with us more about your role and some of the things that you started to identify that some of the new candidates that are coming your way do a really good job of conveying in their interview, and some of the mistakes that they may make just off the bat that they might have when it comes to the interview process.
Sure. Yeah, the recruiting process has changed quite a bit, especially since COVID has came into our lives, right? So our organization, just like many others, have pivoted to be more virtual. And I got to say, as that pivot has changed, I think that a big miss for candidates is, they haven't adapted either. They haven't really changed in the interview approach, and I'll tell you why. So, I always tell candidates, think of 3 things. If you're going to chat with me, take away 3 things to really help you prepare for that interview. And the very first thing is to really dress appropriately. Even though you're interviewing at the comfort of your own home, you don't technically need to, wear a suit, but dress nicely. I have personally, since this pandemic, have seen and interviewed candidates that are fantastic on paper, but I was disappointed because I could see that they're wearing some jammies, as they're chatting with me. And so, again, it doesn't matter if your interview is going to be in person or virtual. Still dress up, even if you wear a t-shirt, put a black, blazer or something on. That way, you can always dress to impress, and you can make the best first impression for people there. So I would say that's likely my very, very first and most important tip for job seekers at this point right now, regardless of the position that you're interviewing for. Just dress appropriately, y'all.
I think that's so incredible and poignant, because you're right. So often we become comfortable in our own home. We think, like, do I need to dress up? Like, a perfect example I can think of was when I was hiring for a role that was customer facing. Same thing, where we're in the interview process and I'm talking with them. I'm like, hey, so when you're in the interview,
or when you're meeting with clients and customers, like the expectation is that you're going to be, dressed professionally, that you'll be in an environment that doesn't have distractions or distracting things around or behind you. And yeah, I mean, it was interesting how many responses I got was, oh, yeah, like I won't do it when I'm actually facing customers. It's like, this is the interview. Like, this is the pinnacle. If you're in a distracting environment right now, how can I trust or ensure that you're not going to be in a distracting environment or wearing clothing or just having an appearance that's not ready to meet with clients or customers? So I think that point is so spot on. And yeah, I mean, the first impression is so critical.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it still happens. And even, hey, for us as the interviewers, I mean, I'll say it, we have to put on that responsibility as well. So, you don't have to wear a suit, interviewers, but, dress up nice too. Let's take it seriously. But I would say that's probably my number one. The other two, research the company. LinkedIn is such a powerful tool. And actually the way that you and I met, Garrett. And so I would say, research the company, reach out to those employees as well at that company that you're interested in. And you never know, somebody could, connect you with the hiring manager. Maybe you may know of somebody that works there. I mean, use your network. It's super important. Obviously, prepare in that way by researching the company. But the last tip I'll say on how to prepare for an interview is really prepare some relevant answers. I'll talk to a lot of candidates. Again, doesn't matter where they are in their career. And when I'm asking them questions, sometimes the answers are not relevant. Maybe they're from 5, 10 years ago. So whenever I'm trying to really understand what they've done since then, it's hard for them to really think about it in real time. So take some time, understand the position that you're interviewing for, and then really think back in your career or even in school, maybe some of the projects that you've worked on that relate to that position, and really use those particular answers. That's really going to help.
I love that. I want to dive deeper on the points 2 and 3 that you brought up. Point 2 is researching the company. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think inherently a lot of students that are watching this might think like, oh, well, I do research the company, but then when I get to the interview, I really struggle to convey how I've done my research of the company. I would love to learn, how can a student go about best conveying that they've actually done their research? Because I think doing the research is one thing, but then actually being able to show the researcher that you've done the research without seeming braggadocious or just like as if you're reciting off facts. There's a methodology to this and some tact to it. I'd love to learn. What are your advice? What is your tips for students kind of wanting to showcase that they've done the research?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's one thing to look at a website and say, oh, wow, that's a really cool place to work. I'm going to apply. But you got to find the reasoning in there, right? Like, why are you really so connected to that brand? Take notes, really. You take notes during the interview, before the interview, prep accordingly. It just really makes sense. And it's going to make you feel more confident whenever you are actually in the interview with the interviewer. But I'll say, really research the things that are very apparent to the interviewer, the things that the interviewer expects for candidates to know. Every recruiter, every interviewer will expect for candidates to really do research on the company. And don't be surprised when recruiters or interviewers ask, so what do you know about the company so far? That really does show that you did do your research, and it gives you now the ammunition, because you did the research, to say, oh, well, it looks like the company's been around for 21 years. It looks like it was based in Austin, whatever the facts were that you've already prepared for. I mean, one, Garrett, that's going to really help to make sure that you have done your research. But, if that question isn't asked directly, then, every recruiter will give the candidate an opportunity to ask questions that are important to them. And so when that happens, that is the perfect time for the candidate to say, hey, I actually did some research on the organization. I've learned this, I've learned that. But one thing I couldn't find was this. If you could tell me a little bit more about that, I would certainly appreciate it. Then again, it goes back to really showcasing that you did your homework, you did your research, and you're truly interested in learning more about that brand and that organization.
I totally love that. I'm in so much agreement on there. I think that's the greatest response. I think another question that I've seen students implement and that I thought was really effective that showed that they've done their research is the question of, hey, so I've noticed that you've recently done XYZ thing. So I've recently noticed that you've expanded to 30 new stores in this location. I'd be curious to know, what is the strategic motivation behind that, and how could you perhaps see my role potentially impacting or influencing any of that new strategic expansion? By showing that by asking that question, you show that you've done the research, and perhaps you put it on the interview to think like, whoa, I haven't really thought about how this role might impact them, but it's good that you're already thinking about it.
I totally agree. What does it do? It shows that the recruiter shows the interviewer and the recruiter that you are really thinking hard, about this position, and you're seeing yourself, in this position's shoes and the impact that you're making. It just shows that you are so invested in this and that you're going to do such a great job if you were selected there for the position. So completely agree.
The third point you brought up was doing research on the role itself. So there's one thing of doing research on the company, and then there's the other thing of doing research on the role itself. Some of the roadblocks I've observed with doing research on the role sometimes is with the job description. Sometimes I've seen job descriptions that are not actually big, but they're not necessarily precise as to exactly what this role does. It seems very similar to potentially roles at other companies. What are things that students can do to really dive deeper and really kind of find what separates this role from other roles and why my past experiences might be able to apply to this role itself?
Great question. One thing you hit the nail on the head here, Garrett. I mean, every company does their job description so differently. Some of them do a great job, and it's very straight to the point. Some of them create like a novel of what that job is like, regardless of really what style that company produces their job descriptions. Take a look at every single bullet point. And for the ones that don't really have a lot of information, it could be for a variety of different reasons. It could be maybe the position is so new that they haven't really had the opportunity to, put some bullets in there because that person hasn't existed yet in their organization. So when I see job descriptions that are vague, I actually personally like them more myself. And the reason for that is because I really, my imagination runs wild. I could really see myself into that position and creating it and making it really special, making it my own, putting my own thumbprint on it, if that makes sense. But, LinkedIn is a really powerful tool. And so if you're curious to know, a little bit more about that position, I would do a couple of things. Go on LinkedIn, look at that organization, take a look at all of the employees that are linked to that company. And if you can, and a lot of people don't realize that you can do that, but if you scroll down that LinkedIn profile for that company page, you'll see a line that just says, hey, here's all the people that have listed that company on their employee or on their profile. So take a look and see if there's anybody with that job description or with that title in their profile. And you do that for a couple of reasons. One, there could be some maybe examples of maybe projects or something that person did that had that particular title. Maybe they're not there anymore. Maybe they got promoted or whatever that may be. But one, you can see, okay, this position previously did exist. I'm not sure why it's open now, but now I can really understand a little bit more about what this person is actually going to be needing to do. Another thing to think about is that if there is not a person in that position, or perhaps there's maybe a vacancy, let's just say it's like the very first position in the marketing department for whatever that may be, that also helps you to really understand what's really needed in that company. You can bring that as an interview question to the recruiter and say, hey, I've noticed that after doing some research that this is the only position that has been with this organization. Is that correct? Is it new? It would be impressive for the recruiter to hear, yeah, it's actually a new position. And recruiters want to brag about the company. The recruiters really want to tell you so much more, and they get so excited when you've actually done the research. So, again, part of doing the research is by just digging a little bit more. LinkedIn is a free site, y'all. So it is okay to look around That's what it's there for. But you'll never really know some of those really key important details unless you actually do the digging yourself.
I love that. And not only that, but you can reach out to the people at the company doing the work itself and on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm a young professional. I'm a college student. I'm potentially interested in a role at your company, or just I'm interested in learning more about your work. Would you be open to connecting with me and perhaps scheduling a 15-minute virtual coffee with me so then I could learn a little bit more about your work and the role that you have within your company? I mean, that could be a great way to get your foot in the door. And sure, it's at that point in time, it's not necessarily a reach out to one and done. Sometimes it's you reach out to a bunch of people because not everybody responds on LinkedIn as favorably. But what we do know is that professionals want to help college students. And so if you're willing to say, hey, I'm a student, I'm open to learning, I'd love to just get 15 minutes of your time, a lot of people would be willing to do that. And it just sometimes depends on who you reach out to and the quantity of people you reach out to.
I will absolutely agree with you, Garrett, and I'll tell you a secret. The way that I got this position at TIF Streets is by doing every single thing that I just mentioned and all the things that you stated as well. I saw there was a posting. I started looking at TIF Streets' website, did all my research, started looking at all their employees on the LinkedIn site, saw that there has never been a director of talent acquisition, which got me even more excited. I saw that there were recruiters. I saw that there were people on the team. So what does that tell you? It tells you there's some big things that are happening. So what did I do? I reached out to the director of HR. I reached out to other people that I really didn't know, but just asking questions. Hey, looks like this is what's happening. How exciting. Would love to spend 10, 15 minutes just chatting with you to learn a little bit more about this exciting opportunity. Maybe I can help. And I'm here. I got the job. Woo!
Yeah, I love that. And that's such a cool testament to doing these activities and these actions because you never know who you'll meet. The other thing that I really love about what you just said was this idea of being entrepreneurial within the role. When you said, hey, it seems like this is the first role of its kind within the company. This is an incredible opportunity. The moment that your mind said, you know what, this is cool, like I could take it in a variety of directions, by asking those questions, you really show interest and curiosity, which a lot of companies are really are seeking in somebody. And as a student, you might think, well, I've been in my classroom setting for a while and I get instructions and my teacher tells me that I need to do XYZ task. And then once I'm done with that task, I can move on to the next task. And what I'm here to tell you is that as you get in your career, a lot of work isn't necessarily cookie cutter, like this is what you do, this is how you do it, and just, keep going. It's a lot of times very open-ended, and for some people that's stressful, but for others it's a great opportunity to be really invigorated by your work because you can take it in any direction you want to take it. So I think for students, be open-minded to that and realize that that's an opportunity, not an inhibitor to your own growth and career trajectory.
Yes, absolutely. Whenever there is an opening, there's obviously a need there. Just because there's some gray, which is meaning not a lot of black and white, right? There's not a lot of meat to that position yet. Doesn't mean that it's going to not be a meaty position. The company identified a need. Now they're just looking for the right person to really come in and make the magic happen at that point. So that's where you want to stand out, show your enthusiasm, show your excitement, do some research. It's okay to say, hey, I was looking at your social media page and see that maybe, you'd like to do this and you do this really well. Have you thought about maybe doing this other concept? Because that could help. Now, it depends on the position that you're interviewing for, right? Maybe a social media manager position would be more relevant. But again, that just shows the recruiter the excitement that you have and the overall interest, and gives them a preview of just your mindset and your capabilities whenever you put your mind to something.
Yeah, I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I love to ask the students a question really quick. The question is, what types of roles are you interested in pursuing? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about you and the type of roles that you have either applied for or are interested in applying for. Dolores, I'd love to transition into the resume and the cover letter. I mean, these are things that we see so frequently necessary for the interview process to even start. What is the purpose of a resume and a cover letter?
Oh, well, I always like to think of a resume as like the magazine cover. of who you are. So, resumes, goodness, some people put a lot of thought and put a lot of effort into it, and some people just don't. You don't have to be a resume writer in order to have a fantastic resume. Be clear, be transparent, but don't forget to brag a little bit. If you've got awards or certifications or things that you're super proud of, put it on your resume. Show other people, show friends, show family, show mentors, show if you're a student, show your professor, really send your resume around to a variety of different people so that way they can give you feedback there. So, but to answer your question, Garrett, your resume is the cover of you. If you're the magazine, you're the star, you're the model, your resume really needs to portray you in the fullest. Now, when it comes to a cover letter, you'll get some organizations that are all about the cover letters. They require a cover letter in order for you to be considered for, an opening. And then some people, like myself, I don't really care for the cover letter, but I'll tell you why. And there really is no right or wrong answer. If you have a cover letter, what happens typically with candidates is you tend to try to put as much stuff on your cover letter that you typically put on your resume. And so it's just really redundant. For me, I've seen it so many times that I just overlook the cover letter. But I'll tell you, the purpose of a cover letter is really just to stand out more so than what your resume may be portraying you as. So my suggestion, if you're producing a cover letter, try to put some stuff that's on your resume, but don't make it look like a resume. Really put stuff that helps you stand out, stuff that personalizes you as a professional, your interests, your accolades, your, again, things that really kind of toot your own horn. Because if someone's going to take the time to look at your cover letter, they want to be able to say, okay, so this person is worthy enough for me to take a look at the next page, which is actually their resume. So make it stand out. Make it, don't make it a novel, don't make it a book, because as a lot of people know, when you are a recruiter, you maybe get, if you're lucky as a candidate, about 3 to 5 seconds of face time, really, for that resume to be looked at by your recruiter. A cover letter is just going to be even less time than that. So make it bold, make it unique, make it something that you're proud of, and that makes me go, interesting person. I'm going to keep looking and take a closer look at this person's resume.
Yeah, I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I personally at first didn't like cover letters, but then over time I started to appreciate them. And I think what I most appreciate about cover letters is that exact same thing that you were talking about, is like it shows personality. It's not a repeat of your resume. What I really like, when I've seen this in like cover letters, I was immediately very attracted to that person and wanting to interview, is when they show a time that they've overcome adversity. Like even if it's a brief of just like, hey, here's something that shows my personality, things that I've done and overcome and what I'm working towards. Because I think sometimes when you get a little braggadocious, it's like, okay, cool, like you've done some cool things, that's awesome. But like, if you can tell me a time that you were vulnerable, that you overcame something cool, and it doesn't have to be something crazy, it can just be something light where, hey, I had a difficult time doing this XYZ thing, after working hard at it, overcame it. That shows a lot about you. I'm also looking for, a lot of times, just grammatical correctness. Like, did you care enough about this document that you were going to be grammatically correct in submitting it to me? If not, it shows that you didn't really care, put that much time into it, or you wouldn't have let a silly grammar mistake kind of happen. And so I'm a big believer. I think the cover letter can be really powerful because you're right. I think for resumes, when I'm looking at them, it just kind of shows me, have you done things that are in the ballpark of what I'm going to need for this type of role? And then if the cover letter shows that you've done something interesting, I'm going to want to interview you and learn more.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, and again, from a person that does not care for cover letters, when I see one that stands out, I'm going to take a look at it. I'm going to read it. I'm going to really think how this person put a lot of effort into this cover letter. I'm one of the recruiters that maybe spends about 3 seconds looking at a resume. If I see that the cover letter is attached, like immediately on top of the resume, I actually tend to look at the cover letter more often. as opposed to, skipping it over if it's maybe separately attached. So y'all, if you put a lot of work and thought into this cover letter, be creative on how you actually attach it. Don't put it as a separate attachment. Put it on, into your resume to guarantee that recruiter sees it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. So I want to transition into a new topic. This is the thing about students that is different than most other professionals, and that's the fact that many students will get offers during a college semester for them to start at that May or that June, the summer after they graduate, meaning that they have months before they actually start in the role, which oftentimes means that they will get multiple offers, but a lot of the time, these offers will essentially be contingent off of a time period. So I guess the question I have for you, Dolores, is what if I get an offer that says, hey, we'd love to have a response back from you within the next 2 weeks, and I'm waiting on a couple other companies to get back to me? What do I do? How do I handle that sort of circumstance?
There I am, Garrett. All right. Well, I got great question. I got to say, how fantastic would it be to get multiple offers, right? Like, that's a great problem to have. And I think as a college student, you want to have your options, right? I mean, it's different than having different interviews to consider, different positions to consider, until you get that offer. Now you have like serious considerations here. I think that's the fun part. My advice, be transparent with your interviewer. Be transparent with your recruiter. It doesn't matter how many positions you're interviewing for. Let them know you're actively interviewing. Let them know your plan, that you're wanting to start at a particular time of the year, whatever that may be. But you got to be transparent with folks, and that's only going to help you. So let's just say the scenario is you're interviewing with 3 different companies. You got the offer, like you had said, Garrett, and they want to have an answer here within about a week or 2. Some people will, they will accept right away and then still kind of hope that they get that offer from the other companies. And then it puts you in a bad spot because you don't really know how to respond to the other company. It just turns into a mess. Here's what I suggest. My suggestion is thank that recruiter, thank that company for giving you the offer, and let them know, hey, I'm actively interviewing right now. I actually am anticipating a couple more offers coming my way. However, it's not going to be for another 3-4 weeks or whatever the time frame is. Let them know. And that way, if they really do want you as a candidate, now they know where, what your goal is. And your goal isn't to choose the best offer, right? Your goal is to make sure that you're making the best decision for yourself and for your future. So let that recruiter know that. If you ever do come to a situation where maybe you're pressured by a recruiter, you got to be okay at letting them know, I'm excited about this company. Please know that I just want to do my own due diligence. I want to make sure that I'm making the right decision for me and my future. They will understand, and recruiters will do what they can to wait for the right candidate. So if you're the right candidate and you're transparent and you're open and you're honest, they're going to get it. They're going to tell the hiring manager, that we need to wait for this person. Now, it's okay if some companies have a deadline. I've been in many positions where I have been telling candidates, hey, we got to make a hire by whatever time of year or whatever time of month because, strategic things are happening. Something to really think about and consider is, okay, well, if that's the case with that company, still stand your ground, still let them know that you're wanting to wait, but just know you may be getting a little bit of pressure from the recruiter to hurry up and make that decision because the organization is really trying to move in a different direction pretty quickly.
I like that perspective. I like that a lot. I mean, it's interesting. I've asked that question to quite a few people, and I get a variety of responses. I've gotten responses from one side of, accept it and stick to it and don't change. Whatever you accept, don't change it. I've seen totally other side of perspectives like, hey, accept it, but if you get a better offer, another offer from someone else, think about how the company would treat you. Like if the company goes through a downturn, are they going to let you go? Like if you think that's the case, then you got to make the decision that's best for yourself. But I love your perspective on this concept of being just open and transparent, saying, hey, I've got other things that I'm waiting on and interviews that I'm working towards pursuing. And I'd love if you would be willing to be patient with me. And some companies aren't. And so for you, you might think, oh, geez, I might be like throwing away this opportunity. And it's possible, but what we often see so frequently is boomerangs. People who start at a company and come back, or maybe they didn't start at a company, but they have a great relationship with that person, and they come back at another time. Happens all the time, but it's so much better than burning that bridge. I mean, if you do accept the offer and then you turn it down at a later date, you have effectively burnt that bridge. It's very difficult to come back from that. So I like the advice of just being transparent and open about what's going on and seeing if they're open to working with you on that.
100% agreed. I have seen candidates that are, again, just fantastic candidates that have not really been transparent throughout the interview process, unfortunately. And they accept the offer and they're excited. We're excited. We're making plans. We're creating emails. We're ordering computers. We're ordering business cards. And then about a week or two before they start, they, send us an email or, let us know that, we unfortunately accepted another position. And it leaves the recruiter puzzled. What's happened? Everything was fine. Like, did we do something? What's going on? Sometimes the recruiter will try to call and say, what happened? Is everything okay? And what happens a lot of times is that somebody decided that they accept another offer that they were just waiting for. How easy would it have been for that candidate to just say, hey, I'm waiting for another offer. It's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks. Please bear with me. And now that recruiter and that organization, it doesn't have to go through this whole, painstaking process of hiring and onboarding somebody when they weren't really 100% invested into it. So again, whatever y'all do, please just be transparent, be open with your recruiter. Worst case, they can't wait, and that's okay. But it doesn't really happen as much anymore. Right now, it is super competitive, and every company really wants to make sure they're hiring right the very first time around. So do your due diligence. The recruiters will as well.
That's awesome. So I'd love to take a moment to ask the students a question. If you've been in a scenario like this, what happened? How did you react? How did you handle that situation? If you've not been in a scenario like this before, how would you react? What would you like to do if you were posed with a scenario where you got an offer, but you're waiting for a couple more? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about it. Like I said, if you've already been in a scenario like this, share with us that circumstance and story. I'd love to learn about it. Post in the comment section. So, Dolores, let's say we've had an interview. We've had a great interview. How do we follow up? What do we do at the end of an interview to put ourselves in the best position to make ourselves look the best?
Oh, what a great question, Garrett. How many times I get messages from candidates that they're so excited that now they know more about the company or now they know more about the position. I get excited whenever I get those emails, and what I typically do, and I train every recruiter that I've ever been a part of, is to always forward that to the hiring manager, because it really shows that this candidate is interested. There's not a lot of candidates that do that, unfortunately. And then what happens is then the hiring manager is waiting. They're waiting for some type of reaction from the candidate. And whenever they don't get any type of reaction, they get disappointed. And in fact, I'm working on a position right now with one of our executives at TIS Streets, and every time she interviews with somebody, she'll ask me, did they send an email? I didn't see an email. This person's great, but gosh, I just want to see if they're really interested. So again, kind of a conversation that happens behind the scenes, but it's actually a real conversation, because just as you're interested in knowing our feedback on moving to the next step in the process or whatever that may be, we're interested in knowing what you think, about the position and about the company, and if there's a good fit there, if you can see yourself here at the organization. So I always want to make sure that, folks know, take a quick moment, send an email, a phone call, even a postcard. I know not that many people use snail mail anymore, but I gotta say, when I get letters in the mail, I'm excited. I will keep those letters because somebody really took the time to sit there, get a card, and just make it a nice personalized note. So do not forget to show that recruiter or the hiring manager, I would say no more than 24 hours later, how excited you are about the position, and thanking them for their time.
I love that. And I know that I personally, and by the way, my handwriting is awful. So if anybody's just thinking like, I would write a handwritten note, but I got bad handwriting. My handwriting is awful. It is garbage. I've got notes here if you want to see. My handwriting is horrible. But I can tell you back in the day when I was recently graduated, I was just getting Ambition and Motion off the ground, and I was starting as a bartender and server on nights and weekends to really compensate myself. I had applied for this really high-end restaurant to be a bartender and server, and I had limited bartending and serving experience at the time. And I know the handwritten letter that I wrote to the hiring manager immediately after the interview is what sealed the deal and got me the job. I know that what it was because he even told me, he's like, you were the only candidate that wrote a handwritten letter after the interview. So that we were intrigued that you were willing to do that. So even though there are people who had way more experiences than me in bartending and serving, I got the job because I wrote the handwritten letter while nobody else followed up. So follow-up is so critical.
Garrett, I love that. I'll tell you another secret. Okay, so one more secret is that one of the things that I like to do is I'll get a sticker. Okay, and I have a sticker. I don't have it in front of me, otherwise I would have showed you. But it's a heart-shaped sticker with my name in the middle. And so what I like to do is I like to write a postcard, just slip that sticker in there, so that way when they open it up, they'll read the card, but they also have the sticker that says Heart Dolores. So what wouldn't you want to, right? I mean, if I was a candidate and I'm sending that and I'm now the recruiter or the hiring manager, I'm looking at it going, maybe I do Heart Dolores. Maybe I should hire this girl, right? It shows creativity.
Yeah, that's so interesting. That makes a lot of sense. It's that there's a lot of psychology and research on that. God, this is kind of like, it is tangentially related, but it's very different. Dr. Robert Cialdini wrote this book called Persuasion, and it's this idea that, well, there's a lot of ideas in it, but the idea is that by changing the way people are primed to perceive you, they are much more likely to feel one way or another about you based on what they're observing. So by you putting in that Heart Dolores sticker in your personalized letter, they're associating Heart Dolores when they think about you. One of the things that he also recommends in just interviews is asking the question, before even getting started, what about my resume stood out to you and what made you want to take the time to interview with me today? By getting them to focus, the interviewer to focus on you and your positive traits, they're already positively primed about you, as opposed to trying to find potentially your flaws or the areas that you're not as strong in, so that they can determine whether or not you're the right fit.
Agreed. Yeah, you can use psychology in a positive way, even in an interview. You don't have to be that pushy. Just be creative and let people know that you're special just by standing out in those ways.
So one kind of final area that I love to chat with you about is, what is the most important component to a job offer? And this is something I know a lot of students are going through. Perhaps some students don't have any professional experiences. Maybe some of them have been in a co-op or they've done internships before. So they've gotten a little bit of experience, but they haven't gotten everything. How do you help people determine what is most important to an offer or to the role that they're going to pursue?
I think whenever you interview, the goal is for you to get that offer, right? And you could interview at, one place, at 3 places. When you have put multiple applications out there, more than one, then that means you're interested in more than one place. And you're interested in those places for a reason. So once you actually do your research and, you've showcased yourself, you've interviewed, and you've gotten all the way to the end of the process, you're learning so much about that organization, the things that you like, the things that you may not like. And so when you get an offer, I'll tell anybody, whether it's somebody I've never met before or my best friends, really think about accepting that offer. Think twice about it. Create a pros and cons list. And, even if it's the job that you really, really are wanting, many people will base their decision on whether or not they should accept an offer based on the amount of money that they're getting paid. So what that offer is financially worth. I can tell you after 16 years of experience at doing what I do, and hey, I've been a candidate myself too. Sometimes you get super excited and you take that offer, super quickly because maybe you need a job right now or whatever the case may be. Do not forget that your happiness means more than a paycheck. You are not a paycheck, you're a person, and your happiness means more than anything else. At the end of the day, that business will go and they're going to do great things, but at the end of the day, you have to take care of yourself. So for me, I have learned that it doesn't matter what company I interview with, I am looking for a strong, inclusive culture, because that's important for me. So really interview about the culture. Ask the recruiter about the culture. If you're talking with employees on LinkedIn, talk about the culture if that's important to you. Other things are benefits. Not a lot of college students have benefits at this point, and so some companies offer benefits, some companies don't. I'll tell you, there's a lot of people that I know that didn't even think to ask questions about the benefits. They just assumed that the job would come with it, and it didn't, and now they're looking for something different. You don't want to go through that. So think about, again, everything else that you're excited about. What about the scope of work that this person's going to be doing? Is this a position that you're going to be fulfilled, not just happy, but fulfilled doing every single day, forever, for however long you're with that organization, or is it not? And so really think about those things. Everybody has your values. Make sure that the position that you accept with the company that you're excited about has the same values. You may be going for the same position at 5 different companies, but all 5 different companies have different values. So the offer amount should not be your main reason to accept an offer. Please make sure that you look at everything else that's important to you. Values, how they treat their people, the culture of the organization, longevity. Do you want to stay in this position forever, or do you want career advancement? Does that company provide that? So do that research, and that's what I meant by that, because at the end of the day, your offer is going to be so much more meaningful for you when you've checked the majority of the boxes on your wish list. And again, just make sure that that company aligns with your values, and you'll be set.
I love that. I think that makes a ton of sense. And I think the one thing I'd love to clarify is not only are you checking the majority of the boxes, but they're weighted based on what's most important to you. So like if there are 10 boxes to be checked off and one company's checked off 6 boxes, but they're your bottom 6, doesn't actually mean that they are the best, that's the best offer. It just means that they checked off more things. So for you, it's a combination. And some people are okay with working 100 hours a week because for them, it's all about the money. If I could work 100 hours a week and get paid a bunch of money, that's fine for some people. For other people, they want balance. They want to have balance between their work and life. For some people, they want to see growth. They want to say, hey, you know what, I'd be okay to take a lower salary, work harder, but I'm going to grow really quickly because I know this company is growing really quickly, meaning that I'm likely to grow with it and get new positions faster than somebody who's in a company that's more stagnant. So really, it's all depending on your personal value system. So I'd love to ask students in the audience watching this, what is your value system? What is your number 1, 2, and 3 components to a job offer that you would like to see? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about it. Dolores, this has been awesome. This has been such a great workshop. I feel like you've given great insights to our students about just how they can prepare for the interview. Are there any final tips or suggestions that you have for any of our students about preparing and making the most out of their interview opportunities?
Well, by the way, Garrett, this has been super fun. I always love chatting with you, so thank you again for this opportunity. Y'all, if y'all have any questions, anything at all that you're wondering about, whether you should go for a particular job or whether you should, accept a job, or what maybe questions around your resume, ask a mentor. A mentor is so important. It really is. They can be your best friend. They can really be open and honest with you. If you don't have a mentor, get one. Ask your friends. Talk to Garrett. He knows so many people. He can help you with a mentorship program, y'all. But I want to put my name out there as well. I love chatting with folks. I love to try to see what I can do to even help get folks into the right position wherever they may be, whether it's at Tips Treats or another organization. So Think of me if you're wondering. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I am here as well. Talk to Garrett, talk to your professor, talk to your parents, talk to, maybe a former boss, maybe a former leader that you have that you really respect, making sure that everybody feels really good about how you're presenting yourself. Because again, don't forget, you only have about 3 to 5 seconds in front of a recruiter whenever you put your resume in there. So otherwise, good luck to all of you in this brand new year. Make it a fantastic one.
Awesome. Thank you, Dolores. This was incredible. I loved your feedback. I love your insights. And remember, students, it's okay to be vulnerable, especially around people that you're like, he was my manager 2 years ago, but we've lost touch. Like, reach out. What do you got to lose? And it's okay to say that you're working on something. If you highly respect somebody, letting them know is an incredible gratitude exercise, and they are so honored to learn that you're grateful for them. So I'm a big believer in that. Dolores, this is incredible insight. Thank you so much for being here. Students, thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. See everybody.